It's 5:30 p.m. here in Lagos, Nigeria. Time for the world today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Here's what's coming up. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu set to propose fully occupying the Gaza Strip when he meets with his security cabinet. U.S. President Donald Trump threatens to increase tariff charges on imports from India from the current 25% following its purchase of Russian oil. Plus, China reports over 7,000 cases of a mosquito-borne virus in Guangdong province. You're watching The World Today. Welcome, everyone. We begin with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying he and his cabinet will work on new military directives, aimed at achieving what he terms the war goals in Gaza, specifically defeating the enemy, freeing the captives, and ensuring that Gaza will no longer be a threat to Israel. The Prime Minister was speaking just before the weekly government meeting. He says Israel remains in the midst of an intense warfare. He called for national unity to stand together and fight together. Responding to reports that the army and other military leaders oppose a plan, the unnamed official said that if that does not work for the chief of staff, he should resign. Families of hostages fear that such plans by the Israeli government could endanger their loved ones, with 20 out of 50 believed to be alive in Gaza, while polls suggest 3 in 4 Israelis instead favor a ceasefire deal to return the hostages. Uganda is on the verge of hosting 2 million refugees as crisis in Sudan, South Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo escalates, further driving hundreds of people to cross the border daily in search of safety and life-saving aid. And more refugees are seeking safety in Africa's largest refugee-hosting country, Uganda, as funding cuts hamper humanitarian support in one of the worst funding crises in decades. Uganda is currently home to 1.93 million refugees, over 1 million of whom are below the age of 18. Since the start of 2025, an average of 600 people per day have arrived in the country, with numbers expected to reach 2 million by the end of the year.
I'm in Kiryondongo in Uganda, where we have seen an increase of arrivals in the past months. The situation has become untenable. We simply don't have the resources for the basic needs, whether it's water, whether it's shelter. I'm seeing children that are malnourished. I'm seeing women that are desperate, having arrived here with almost nothing. The emergency needs are massive, and we're simply not able to meet them, whether it's water, whether it's shelter, whether it's food. We're only 25% funded, and it's not just about UNHCR, it's about the World Food Programme, it's about the other UN agencies, it's about the government of Uganda and their generosity towards this population, offering safety, offering a home. But without funding, we're simply not able to help.
Even the class is too full, to the extent you, the teachers, you cannot really supervise the learners very well. Because as a teacher, you are teaching, you need to move between the children to check whether they are very attentive. But this one has not been easy because of the congestion in the class. And when it comes time for exam, all of them come, and you find they sit even outside on the verandas to write their exams. So congestion in class is really an issue.
Brazil's former president Jair Bolsonaro has been put under house arrest, and the U.S. President Donald Trump is not happy about this. The Trump administration is now intensifying its campaign to help the former president avoid punishment for masterminding a failed coup. The Trump administration has thrown its weight behind efforts to help Jair Bolsonaro escape a lengthy jail sentence for allegedly plotting to seize power after he lost the 2022 election to his left-wing rival, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Federal police claim the conspiracy, including plans to assassinate Lula, the vice president, and Moraes. The plot allegedly culminated on January 8, 2023, a week after Lula took over, when thousands of Bolsonaro supporters stormed Congress, the Supreme Court, the presidential palace, all in what the police claim was an unsuccessful attempt to start a military intervention. Now, President Trump claims his ally, who is currently being tried by the Supreme Court, is the victim of a politically motivated witch hunt, and last week slapped Magnitsky sanctions on Moraes. The U.S. president has also announced a 50% tariff on Brazilian imports from Wednesday. EU spokesperson Olaf Gilles says a trade conflict with the US is not a desirable course of action. He was making the comment right before the US President Donald Trump threatened the bloc with a 35% tariff. Trump told US media the EU would pay tariffs of 35% if they did not meet promised investments in the US, which were announced during his meeting with European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen in Scotland last week.
When it comes to the High Representative, she has been extreme.
I can confirm that the Commission has today adopted the necessary legal procedures to suspend the implementation of our EU countermeasures, which were due to kick in on August 7th. I would remind you that EU member states and business stakeholders have consistently underscored that a trade conflict with the US was not a desirable course of action. They have insisted to us that only a negotiated solution could ensure stability and protect our shared interests. We secured continued access for our companies to one of our largest and most important markets. That's what our industry asked for. That's what we have delivered. We now have a clear, inclusive 15% tariff ceiling for most EU exports. In other words, we have achieved an insurance policy that no higher tariffs will emerge for European businesses in this extremely volatile and unpredictable contemporary economic environment. This horizontal 15% tariff ceiling, which the Commission negotiated on behalf of our member states, on behalf of our industry, is all-inclusive and will also apply in the future.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has threatened to raise tariffs on goods from India over its Russian oil purchases. India says the attack is unjustified and vows to protect its economic interests, deepening the trade rift between the two countries. Trump complained about India's trade decision in a post on social media, saying, "India is not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, they are then, for much of the oil purchase, selling it on the open market for big profits. They don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. Because of this, I will be substantially raising the tariff paid by India to the US." A spokesperson for India's foreign ministry said in response, India will take all necessary measures to safeguard its national interests and economic security. And for the rest of the world, the U.S. State Department is preparing to roll out a visa bond program that would require travelers from certain countries to pay up to $15,000 before entering the U.S. on tourist or business visas. The move revives a Trump-era policy first proposed in November of 2020, targeting countries with high visa overstay rates, many of them in Africa. According to a draft rule, the 12-month pilot program would apply to nationals from countries where overstay rates exceed 10%. The bonds are meant to ensure travelers leave the U.S. on time. Visitors would have their money refunded upon departure, naturalization, or even death. The official list of affected countries will be published on the travel.state.gov website at least 15 days before the program goes into effect, and it may be updated with similar notice. Past federal data cited countries such as Chad, Eritrea, Haiti, Myanmar, Yemen, Burundi, Djibouti, and Togo as having high overstay rates. A notice set to be published on August 5 says the program will help the State Department evaluate the feasibility of using bonds as an enforcement tool in coordination with the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of the Treasury. Thousands of residents in the northern Indian city of Prayagraj, Uttar Pradesh, are facing a mounting crisis as severe flooding has submerged approximately 15,000 houses overnight. The rising waters, fueled by heavy rainfall since Friday, forced the evacuation of over 1,000 people and left vast areas without electricity or even clean water. the devastating impact of the rising waters from the Ganges and the Yamuna rivers as they inundate homes and streets has left hundreds of property partially submerged and forcing countless of people seeking shelter on higher ground. Over 50 villages in the surrounding region are reported to be severely affected. Flood relief teams have been urgently deployed across Prayagaj to assist with evacuations and provide essential aid as the city grapples with the ongoing deluge. And over in Beijing, China, more than 76,000 residents have been evacuated to temporary shelters as a precaution, with the capital bracing for another round of heavy rainfall. Crews assisted senior citizens and transferred them to resettlement areas, while a hotel and a stadium were prepared to receive evacuees and stocked with food and medical supplies. This comes a week after catastrophic floods killed 44 people, impacted over 300,000 residents, and damaged around 24,000 homes in the deadliest deluge to hit the Chinese capital since 2012. The weather forecast has warned that some parts of the capital are expected to receive over 200 millimeters of rain within 6 hours, a third of the city's average annual rainfall of 600 millimeters of rain. Well, staying in China, more than 7,000 cases of a mosquito-borne virus have been reported across the Guangdong province since July, prompting measures similar to those taken during the COVID-19 pandemic. In Foshan City, which has been hit by the hardest, the virus known as chikungunya must stay in hospital. Patients must stay in hospital where their beds will be protected with mosquito nets. They can only be discharged after they test negative or at the end of a week-long stay. Spread through the bite of an infected mosquito, the virus causes fever and severe joint pain, which sometimes can last for years. Although rare in China, chikungunya is common in South and Southeast Asia and in parts of Africa. Young adults in Germany want to have children, but fewer and fewer are actually having them. That's according to new research from Germany. Joining me now to discuss this is the DW's Marie Sinner in Berlin. Marie, thanks for joining us on the program. Now, this study says young people in Germany, in average, wish for about 2 children, but in reality, women are having less than that. Why is there a disconnect between people's plans and the reality on ground?
Well, there isn't a singular cause behind lower birth rates in Germany, but the authors of the study write that one of the reasons is the fact that people are delaying having children because of uncertainty around their own financial and personal situation, but also uncertainty around international crises like the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, or wars like the war in Ukraine. And on top of that, younger generations and young women especially are prioritizing personal freedom, travel, and stability, and by the time they feel secure enough financially, for example, to have children, often the likelihood of them being able to conceive is lower, and that's not unique to Germany. The global fertility rate has dropped on average to less than half of what it was in the 1960s, and across the world we are seeing birth rates below the replacement rate of 2.1 children per woman. So that's the birth rate that would be necessary to sustain a country's population size. And it's a trend that's not just happening in wealthy countries, but increasingly also in middle-income countries across Europe, Asia, North America, for example. The one continent that isn't seeing this dramatic drop in birth rates is Sub-Saharan Africa. The birth rate in Nigeria, for example, is twice the replacement rate. It's at 4.4 children per woman average. So this is an issue that Sub-Saharan Africa isn't struggling with in comparison to Europe and Germany.
Well, I can confirm that, Marie, really not struggling with that. But what are the impacts that the low birth rates are having on Germany?
Right now, Germany has one of the oldest populations in the world, and it has fewer babies are born. That imbalance is growing. That has serious implications for the economy, especially for the labor market. Germany is facing a huge labor shortage at the moment that's weighing down our stagnating economy. Many industries here, for example, the very important manufacturing industry, the car manufacturing industry, steel, for example, in Germany, are struggling with labor shortages. The healthcare sector in Germany is struggling because as more older people also means more people in hospitals, and with fewer young people who can work as doctors, as nurses, the healthcare sector is under major strain. And then you also have social aspects where young people are moving to big cities, the fewer young people that are around, and rural areas are getting older and older, especially Eastern Germany is suffering from so-called ghost towns, which are dying out, where we are seeing only elderly people left. And that's also exacerbating other problems like the loneliness epidemic here in Germany.
Indeed, Marie. So what are the possible solutions to the dwindling birth rates?
So Germany has been trying for years to address this problem of declining birth rates. And while some progress has been made, the challenge remains, really. So far, the government has introduced a number of family-friendly policies. One of the most well-known one is so-called Elterngeld. That's a paid parental leave scheme that allows couples to share up to 14 months off work, with the state covering a portion of their income. There's also Kindergeld, which is a monthly child benefit for families. And Germany has made major investments in daycare expansion. So parents in Germany have the legal right to a daycare spot for their child once their child is 1 year old. But despite these efforts, the birth rate still remains below replacement level. Why? Experts say the existing policies don't go far enough, especially for families trying to have a second or a third child. Looking ahead, solutions being discussed include encouraging more equal parenting roles so that the burden of childcare doesn't fall disproportionately on women. And that would lower the hurdle for women to decide to have children or to have more children, knowing that they won't be the main caretaker for that child. There is also a growing effort in Germany around making it easier for people to immigrate to the country to alleviate this problem of Germany's aging society. So we're trying to make it easier, make it more welcoming for people from abroad to settle here as skilled workers.
Interesting perspective. Thanks again, Marie. We're off on a short break on The World Today. Still ahead. NASA set to fast-track plans to build a nuclear reactor on the moon by 2030. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office has announced the opening of the applications for the prestigious Chevening scholarships to study in the United Kingdom. Registration is now open from today, August 5, until October 7, 2025. The office says the Chevening program offers fully funded master's degrees at UK universities to individuals who can clearly demonstrate outstanding leadership, influence and networking skills through compelling evidence-based examples. For more than 40 years, Chevening has attracted hundreds of thousands of applications globally. According to Richard Montgomery, the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Chevening is more than a scholarship, but a gateway to a global network of leaders, innovators, and changemakers. Since the program started in 1983, over 60,000 professionals have advanced their careers through Chevening, demonstrating the UK's commitment to developing leaders for tomorrow. An Australian politician convicted of rape is fighting from his jail cell to remain a member of the New South Wales State Parliament. Gareth Ward was last month found guilty of sexually assaulting two young men aged 18 and 24 at his home between 2013 and 2015. He's now in custody pending sentencing. The NSW State Parliament had planned to expel the 44-year-old this week after he refuses to resign following the guilty verdict. But his lawyers who plan to appeal his conviction say they will seek an injunction at a Supreme Court hearing on Thursday to stop the independent member Forkiyama from being forced out. The ongoing clash between South Africa's Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana and Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago over the country's inflation target exposes rising tension between monetary policy control and political authority. In a bold move, the South African Reserve Bank has unilaterally lowered its inflation target to 3% by bypassing the Finance Ministry, which maintains that it alone has the power to set such policy.
We began a discussion on the issue of monetary policy and specifically the role and the value of inflation targeting. Everyone understands that it is the Minister of Finance, together with Cabinet, who sets the inflation target in consultation with the South African Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank then operates independently in pursuit of the inflation target that will have been agreed upon. We need to have further discussion within government on how we give effect to our conference resolutions and manifesto commitments to align monetary, fiscal, and trade policy. On local government, we were reminded that local government is the epicenter of infrastructure decline and poor service delivery.
The Rwandan government has accepted up to 250 migrants from the United States under a bilateral initiative signed in June of 2025. Government spokesperson Yolande Makolo says the arrangement reflects the nation's values built on reintegration and rehabilitation, given Rwanda's history of displacement. Each deportee will be vetted before arrival and provided with workforce training, healthcare, and accommodation support to facilitate their integration into one of Africa's fastest growing economies. Washington reportedly already submitted a preliminary list of 10 individuals for approval. Deportees will only be accepted if they have completed any prison terms or have no pending criminal cases. Child sex offenders are excluded. They're not required to stay permanently in Rwanda, and en route, the U.S. is offering an undisclosed financial support to Kigali through a grant based on integration needs. But the Rwandan High Commission in Nigeria has marked the 31st anniversary of the country's Liberation Day, known as Kwibora 31. The occasion was attended by diplomats, Nigerian officials, the media, and friends of Rwanda in Abuja. It was also marked by traditional Rwandan dances, showcasing the country's progress and unity. Ambassador Christophe Bazivamo, in his address, expanded on the Kwangane philosophy in Rwanda, which ensures that Rwandans will never again be made to feel like strangers in their country.
Our ambition is clear: to become an upper middle income country by 2035 and a high income knowledge-based economy by 2050. And this is not a dream. It's a strategic plan anchored in inclusivity, sustainability, and innovation, ensuring that the fruits of our development benefit every single Rwandan. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Rwanda's liberation story is not only Rwandan, it is African. It is part of a broader movement of African nations rising to reclaim their futures, define prosperity on their own terms, and stand tall in the community of nations.
As we end the program, NASA plans to place a nuclear reactor on the moon within the next 5 years. That's according to U.S. media. The move is part of ambitions to establish a permanent human base on the lunar surface. U.S. media Politico reports that NASA's acting head warned that Russia and China could declare a keep-out zone on the moon, pushing the U.S. to act quickly. However, experts say the plan faces obstacles, including recent NASA budget cuts, and concerns that geopolitical rivalries are driving the timeline. The reactor would be used to power future lunar habitats and technological infrastructure. That's the world today. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.